I have had a brain wave. This little man here is called Clive. He's the first ever puppet that I made, and he's a bit worse for wear, bless his heart, and I didn't actually make him very well. We decided that we were going to try and build him better, knowing what I know now with the skills I've picked up over my years of puppet making, and I've had an absolute brain wave. I think Clive here could do with a little adaptation, and I'm going to turn him into a hand puppet. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a new head shape, a melon shape. This is called a melon skull, and it's kind of complicated, but let's get into it. Let me take you through the thought process of my genius. You can see here that the original Clive's head shape is this lovely round dome situation we've got going on. I don't know if you're familiar with the Muppets, but in the Muppets sort of like Christmas Carol, they've got this cart of singing vegetables and they are all hand puppets, and I thought it would be a really cool idea if we adapted Clive into a hand puppet. So what I've done is I've made this mock-up here. Now this is a classic melon head shape. You can see how it's really nice and ovally, and it's a bit different to the usual bog standard skull. I think he looks a bit like Zippy from Rainbows, and I know that because instead of my mother allowing me to watch the childhood TV shows that were designed for my age bracket, she would show me her childhood TV shows on VHS and make me believe they were my own. So while kids my age were watching the classic things and chatting about it in the playground, I had no one to talk to because I was watching the Flumps, Button Moon and Rainbows. So this is what I'm thinking, and this is like a lovely round top that could be our cupcake, and all I've done to adapt this into a hand puppet is I've changed the point of entry here. You can see the surgery I've done. I've filled this up and then I've opened up a gap at the back, and that is for our hand to go in, so that it becomes really easily a little hand puppet like that. And I think when this is the top of the cupcake, all I need to do is get this base that we made the other day, make it a bit bigger, put it on the bottom jaw like that, and you've got yourself a giant hand cupcake, which I think is going to be really amazing, and definitely a really cool adaptation from little Clive here. Also, I took your suggestions into consideration for his name, though I do think the winner stands out, and that is just Clive. Everybody wants a name to stay the same, so I'm thinking any cupcake that I make now or in the future is just going to be a legion of Clives. So this is Clive 2.0, this is Clive OG, and the more cupcakes we make in my lifetime, we'll just have more Clives. I will be linking the melon puppet head pattern that I used in the description. Now the melon head is a bit different to a typical skull shape. It's a little bit more complicated and advanced, and it takes a minute to wrap your head around it. But don't you worry, I will take you through it, and I get confused still, even now doing it, so it's absolutely fine. I'm sure you're going to find it easier than me. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. I use a mixture of very professional and incredibly unprofessional methods when making my puppets. If you see something here today that works for you, that's fantastic. But if you see nothing that works for you at all, continue on your way. This is just what works for me in this current moment. So I've got more foam here because we did drastically run through it very quickly, and I'm just going to cut off a section of it. So the melon shape is really confusing. We've got the same skull shape in Betsy that is in Dr. Cecil as well, but when we made Betsy, it's a very simple shape like this cut out twice, and this is the mouth area, this is the neck area, and it kind of looks like how it's going to look. But with a melon shape, you've really got to try and visualize how a 2D flat thing is going to become that curvature little bit. We've got this part, which will need to be cut out twice, and we've also got this part, so these bits will need to be connected together. Now this is the very front of the jaw. In my little prototype here, this bit is this bit, so it sits on the front here, and then these two bits sit side by side, and this becomes the mouth area and this becomes the neck hole, if that makes any sense. So it's just a little bit more confusing. So I only need one of these, but I do need two of these. I'm just going to go around. You are technically meant to use a knife when cutting foam, so you get those lovely straight edges, but I don't have that, so I'm just going to use scissors, because as you may or may not know by now, the method in which I put my skull together is absolutely barbaric and relentless, so it doesn't really matter if I get it particularly neat or not. Okay, so I've cut out my pieces here, and I'm going to pin them together to once again give you an insight of how this goes together, because it is hard to wrap your head around it. I'm sure you'll find it much easier than I do. You've got this here, and you can see that at the top you've got a larger triangle and a thinner triangle. This thinner triangle is the front of the face, and this bigger triangle is the back of the face. So eventually this will curl around like that. and this is actually the bottom of the mouth, and this is the beginning of that upper jawline. So I'm going to pin it together now to show you what it's going to look like. I find it a very confusing pattern to wrap your head around, but once you got it type thing, especially if you've just come from doing a bog standard skull. This is a bit like, oh my god. I did originally plan for Dr. Cecil to be a melon head, but unfortunately, because he's got an eyebrow mechanism that makes his eyebrows move up and down, didn't actually fit in the melon head. So I did have to kind of unfortunately replan it. Because I'm not clever enough to move the neck hole part of the pattern, I just cut it out, and then I'm going to fill it in, much like with my prototype. I'm going to fill it in, and then I'm going to manually cut out a bit at the back. I am not clever enough to change this pattern in any way. This is already at my peak limit pattern wise. So give or take here, this is roughly what we're going to have. This is the shape of the melon. So you can see that we've got our big triangles here, and then we've got our other little confusing bits at the back, and they match up to have a neck hole and a mouth hole all at the back here, and these parts come together so you've got this kind of shape, and we're gonna connect it together now. My method of connecting things together is where I become incredibly unprofessional. Because I have no ventilation and I am in a flat, I don't have access to those big bad boy glues, and quite frankly I'm not sure I want access to those big bad boy glues. But what I usually do is I get a bit of fabric glue here, and I connect the pieces of foam together with the fabric glue, and then I push pins in it to keep that fabric glue secure as it dries. And then for good measure, I also sew up the seam so that there is no chance of that coming undone. If we're not using the correct methods to put it together, I would surely hate for it to come apart in any way. The only way that I can sleep at night is to connect it thoroughly to ensure its safety. So that's what I do. If you don't have access to the big boy glues, as I've actually heard quite a few of you don't, totally fine. Don't sweat it. Just do this instead. It works the same. You'll never see it once the skin is on. It is a bit more time consuming, but I do prefer it. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of how I connect it together. So all I'm going to do here, I'm going to treat this jawline here as an example. So I've got my glue here. I definitely need to get some more. Look at it, poor little thing's on his last legs. But I'm just going to put a little bit of glue down the strip of the jaw. I've got this brush, which I have neglected. I'm just going to pad that glue around my little seam here. And then while I let that get tacky, I'm just going to pull that in. If you were using a toxic glue, you could literally just put this together, press it, and it would stay in place. But this isn't that. So what I'm going to do for extra support is just put some pins into its little jaw here so that that glue is getting tacky, sticking to the other side. But if it's not strong enough to hold it, these pins are going to do that job and just keep it really nice and secure. And then all I would do once I've pinned all of it is sew this in place as well for that extra layer of security. So I'm going to do this now, and I will come back to you very shortly. Okay, so I have connected all of this together. I've also taken the liberty of filling in that bottom gap that I'm not talented enough to move. So I filled that in, and then at the back here I've literally cut out the same shape at the very back of it into a lovely little oval, and I've sewn that in place so that's not going to come apart. This will be our cupcake. I'm so excited to see how it turns out. This is what we've got at this current time, and the next stage is to add some mouth plates. Now the mouth plates for this melon shape are a bit different to normal mouth plates. You can see here we've got the top jaw shape and we've got the bottom jaw shape. The top jaw shape is slightly bigger than the bottom jaw, so it's crucial that when we cut these out and make them, we've labelled them so that we get them right. I'm going to cut out 4 in total, 2 of each in cardboard. You can use plastic if you've got sort of like a thin layer of plastic from a box lid or a folder, and you can see how I've labelled 2 of them bottom and 2 of them top so that I know what goes where. When we put our hand through here, we're going to want somewhere for our hand to sit comfortably so we can operate the puppet safely and happily. And for that, I've just got another piece of scrap foam and I've cut it in the shape of the top lid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the top piece on here so that we can put our hands underneath here. You will need a glue gun for this bit. So the plan is I'm going to connect these 2 top pieces and these 2 bottom pieces together just to give it a little bit more strength, because if we're using cardboard, we are using something that's a little bit weaker than plastic. So I do like to give it a couple of little layers just to give it a little bit of strength and integrity. And once I've done the top pieces, I'm also going to add this bit on top. But I'm not going to glue this long line here because I need to leave that open so that our hand can fit in comfortably. I'm simply just going to go around the edge and glue that bit instead. I'm just going to go a little bit crazy on this bottom piece here. She's burping at me for more glue, bear with me. Oh God. She just got a bit too excited. I'm trying to keep it, as I go, as flat as possible, because if we get any bumps on it, it won't be a flat situation and it might make our fabric look a bit weird as well. I'm going to very quickly, as it's drying, place it on as evenly as I can and press down, and bear in mind that the heat does come through the cardboard and it might really sting and hurt. Be persistent, bear with, don't hurt yourselves. I'm just going to put that there for that to dry, and we're going to connect our top piece. And once that's pressed down, I'm now going to do the same thing and grab my foam here and go around the edge, but leave that long strip bare. And once I've done that and it's burning into that foam, I'm going to flip it over and get it as evenly as I can onto the cardboard and press that down as well. Now that's all pressed down, the next step is to connect it into our skull here. I'm going to place my bottom jaw in first. Because this is a funny pattern, and you can see our jawline actually started on another shape that we've connected together, sometimes when you open the jaw to put the jaw in, you can end up splitting this bit here. I did it on my prototype here, and I did just put some hot glue on it and tied it up extra again, and that should hold it, but you never know who's going to operate it, and if someone really wants to emote with this poor thing, it's going to come apart again. So just be aware that foam isn't the most resilient thing in the world, and if you are opening this to put the mouth plate in, you might just need to be extra careful. I'm now going to go around with the glue gun and solidify that, and I'm just going to press that in. I've done one side and I'm just going to press that in. You can see we get that lovely curvature of the lip going over the plate here, and I'm just going to hold that in and bear with. See the sides, look around. Now that's resting in place, I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to get my glue gun again. All right, and while that's resting in place, we're going to do the same with the top part, making sure that I don't get any on the actual mouth plate itself, and if I do, as I've just done, I keep it really nice and smooth and just smooth it out so that we've got no lumps and bumps. And while that dries, we can start to focus on the skin. My personal preference is to give my puppets a black mouth with a red tongue, because I think the red tongue pops. I'm not sure that that's the best answer. I think something like a lovely pinky or maybe even a burgundy red would look a lot better. I think the colour scheme will work a bit better if I give him sort of a winey red mouth. So to do that, I've got this piece of felt here, and all this is an amalgamation of the top jaw and the bottom jaw pattern with a little bit of a gap left behind. I drew those out, but I left a little gap in between, because when you shove the felt into the mouth, you've got this sort of section where both mouth plates have a little gap in them. So if you think that you're shoving the felt back in as you can, you want to have a little bit of extra room going. So this is all I've done, and the next thing we're going to do is install it into the cavity. I'm going to open the chasm, ready for the procedure. I'm just going to lay my felt in and get that placed roughly where I want it. I've decided to fabric glue it because sometimes when you use hot glue you can get all those ridges and lumps, but with fabric glue it's pretty flat all around. So I've just got my glue here and I'm going to spread it around this cardboard base plate as best I can, and I'm going to let that get tacky, and then as that starts to set, I'm just going to flip this one over and do the same thing, and you should be left with something like this. I do think that this is going to be a better colour, all things considered. The next thing you're going to need, ideally, is a tongue, and also I've noticed that Clive has tonsils. I've never done it since, but I did do it at the beginning, so I thought I could honour that. You can totally make your tongues and tonsils any shape or size that you want. I usually like to go for a heart shape with a curved bum. I'll give you an example. So this is my typical tongue shape, and this is the tonsil shape. So we're going to install them now, and I'm going to get the fabric glue again, and all I'm doing is just doing a really thin coat on the back of the shape so that it can get tacky, and then I'm going to try and make sure I've got it as centre as possible. If you don't put it in the centre of the head, and you meant to put it in the centre of the head, you will kind of notice it's a very noticeable thing. I'm going to use this centre line at the top here to kind of give me a guide as to where the middle of his mouth is, and then I'm going to do the same to my tonsils, and that is kind of like mirroring the centre of the tongue now because they are one and the same. And there we have it. We've got his little tonsils and we've got his tongue, which looks very similar to the original, so I feel like I've honoured him in a little bit of a way. And now is the time for the covering. Now we're going to use Nyla fleece today. If you haven't heard me go absolutely insane for this fabric, basically in the UK you can only really get polar fleece to use on a puppet, and that's fine, but it's not really the intended fabric. But one of the intended fabrics to use is something called Nyla fleece, but it is not readily available in the UK. You can't get it anywhere except for in 2 colours, and as a surprise birthday present, my granny absolutely pulled through and she got me pink Nyla fleece and purple Nyla fleece. So while our next puppet is going to be purple, I have no choice. This puppet is going to be made with pink Nyla fleece. Now I'm going to get the Nyla fleece out now and we're going to begin the pattern making for the head so that we can put it on and then connect it to this mouth plate area here. Do you know, I think I even got emotional last time. I do remember crying a little bit and it seems so ridiculous. It's just absolutely amazing. I don't think I'll ever be over actually being able to use Nyla fleece. It is fantastic. Don't feel like you need Nyla fleece. It's totally fine. It is expensive. This is just a little treat, but polar fleece is good for what you want to do if you are a UK resident and you can't get hold of it very exclusively. You'll notice that it's got a stretch this way, but if I pull it the other way, it doesn't really have anything. So I want to make sure that when I draw my patterns out, we get this lovely stretch going across the pattern so that we're able to fit the skull in perfectly. So I'm going to make sure that when I draw it, I'm drawing it with that lovely stretch. Oh my God, it's so good, isn't it? It's so good, isn't it? Okay, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. I'm going to be using the same patterns that I used for the foam, but I'm just going to be giving a little bit more room around the edges so that we've accounted for those curvatures and the 3D space. So I'm going to draw this out once and I'm going to draw this out twice, but one this way and one that way so that we can join them up properly. All right, so I've drawn my patterns out and now I'm going to cut them out. And as I cut them out, I'm just going to leave a gap between the pattern and where I'm cutting so that we've got a seam line. So I'm just going to go around the edges, leaving a lovely little gap here. I've got to think of a project to do with all these scraps as well, because there is absolutely no way that I'm letting a single inch of this go to waste. All right, and I'll put the rest of my absolutely gorgeous, amazing perfectness away. And here we have it. So we've got two this shape, one way, one the other, and then we've got the big one in the middle. And I'm going to show you how I pin them together. There's two triangles at the top of this weird shape here, and the smaller one is the one that attaches to the front facing bit. So I'm going to make sure that I've got that right, and I'm going to start pinning my pattern in place. So I'm going to get both corners and I'm going to get my absolutely cursed needles that I have neglected through time with glue, and as a consequence they don't needle very well, but I'm going to try and line up. Oh, actually, I don't need to. What am I playing at? I've got these little things. They're brilliant. I've just got these little clips and then it's scot-free. I don't stab myself and everyone's a winner. So I've pinned it together very loosely and I've done that inside out. You want to start by connecting that however you wish. You can totally hand stitch or you can use a sewing machine. As we know, my sewing machine is terrible and sets itself on fire. So I will be hand stitching this. Use whatever stitch is preferable to you and whatever makes you comfortable. I literally just go in one way, out the other. Very simple. And I'm going to start by sewing this up and then I will rejoin you when I've stitched it together. Okay, so I have sewn this all together and I've also cut out and added a hole at the back for my new entryway. I haven't yet covered up the old one. I'm absolutely sure and positive that you can work out how to move the whole part. It's just something that is not equating in my brain at all. So I'd much rather fill it in afterwards because you're not going to see this part anyway because we're going to have the base of the cupcake underneath it. So don't worry at all. So now comes the little bit fiddly part and I'm going to start to put this onto my skull here, just working around until you get a feel for it and you feel like you're happy with the placement. And again, bear in mind that this bottom part won't be seen. It will be covered by the cupcake base. So if we need to steal a little bit more from it, we can. Okay, now I've got it to a place where I think I'm happy with it. I'm going to start putting some pins in it just so that we can keep it secure, and then we're going to sew it to the mouth itself. If you're interested as well, I did mock up a little eye for him, which we're going to add next week, so we can already get a little look at how creepy he's going to be. That is actually concerning. That looks, I mean, he kind of looks like a pink frog at the moment, doesn't he? I'm just trying to roll over those edges here so that we don't get those seam lines. So I've pinned that in place. I've left these little bits open just to give me some leeway in case I've got it a little bit wrong. So I'm going to begin by getting my thread and starting to sew my Nyla fleece on. I recommend just taking your time with this bit because we want really it to be as invisible as we can. So just relax, grab a cup of tea and just set aside some time to get that right if you haven't done it before. Essentially, I'm going to sew the skin to the inside of the mouth that we've made, but I'm going to do it in a way where you can't see it. There's a little flap here that we've made by curling the fabric around. So I'm just bringing that needle underneath it so we've connected into that mouth plate fabric. And when I get to the corners, I'm just going to stretch it as much as I can and use whatever fabric I haven't used to get that covered all nicely. But I'm literally just going into this purple fabric here for the mouth. It is really fiddly, especially with a tiny needle, but I'd rather that because then I can hide as much as possible. and you haven't made any big holes. I'm just bringing that thread through, and then it immediately, just see how it just curls it in nicely for us. So I'm going to do that all the way around. All right, I've finished sewing it to the head, and I'm just going around with my needle, and anywhere that you can see where I've been, I'm just ruffling it over so that the texture hides everything I've done. And there we have it. We have something that looks like this, and it's the base of our cupcake. I think it looks amazing, and the Nyla fleece is doing such a good job. I just love the texture so much. If I get the little eyeball out for next week, we can start to see how our character is going to come to life, and I think it's going to be so, so good. I can't wait to develop it more and see how it's going to turn out. I really love that we're going for a hand puppet structure. I haven't done that before, and I think it's going to be really, really cool. So thank you so much for watching and joining me. If you did enjoy what you saw here today and you found it the tiniest bit relaxing, please do subscribe and ring that bell so that you can be told when I upload a new session. Thank you so much again for joining me on this new cupcake journey, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.